In Malaysia, a $100 billion city called Forest City stands 99% empty. Designed for 700,000 people, this futuristic metropolis is now a ghost town, with fewer than 10,000 residents wandering its deserted streets. This city wasn't just built, it was created from the sea itself, constructed on 4 artificial islands large enough to hold New York's Central Park 4 times over. Engineers moved 163 million cubic meters of sand, enough to fill 65,000 Olympic swimming pools, to build this green paradise. So how did one of the most ambitious and expensive engineering projects on the planet become a colossal failure before it was even completed? The story begins not just with a plan for a city, but with a plan to change the world. In the 2010s, China launched its Belt and Road Initiative, a massive project to build new trade routes connecting Asia, Europe, and Africa. One of China's largest property developers, a giant called Country Garden, saw an opportunity. In a joint project with a powerful Malaysian company connected to the Sultan of Johor, they unveiled a breathtaking vision in 2016, Forest City. This was not just another housing development. Designed by the world-famous Sasaki Associates, it was pitched as a dream paradise for all mankind. The plan was for a smart, green metropolis built on 4 new islands. It would have buildings covered in plants, a futuristic transport system with no cars on the surface, and every luxury imaginable. But this paradise was not for everyone. The apartments were priced far out of reach for most Malaysians. The project was aimed squarely at one group, the growing middle class of China, who were looking for a safe place to invest their money in a second home abroad. This single decision would become the project's fatal flaw. But before the dream could crumble, it first had to be built. And to build this paradise, engineers first had to build the very ground it would stand on, a task of almost impossible scale. You cannot build a city in the ocean without first creating land. The plan for Forest City required creating 4 artificial islands with a total area of nearly 14 square kilometers. To help you understand just how big that is, it is more than 4 times the size of New York's Central Park and 7 times larger than the entire country of Monaco. Creating this much land from nothing is a monumental engineering feat. The process started with huge ships called sand suction dredgers. These vessels sailed to other parts of the sea, vacuumed up millions of tons of sand from the ocean floor, and transported it to the Forest City site. There, they dumped the sand into the water, layer by layer, until a new landmass emerged from the sea. The sheer volume of material moved is hard to comprehend. The project required over 163 million cubic meters of sand. The Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt has a volume of about 2.5 million cubic meters. This means engineers had to move enough sand to fill the Great Pyramid more than 65 times over. But this new land was just a giant pile of loose, wet sand. To stop it from washing away, massive stone dams and breakwaters were built around the edges of the new islands, like a frame holding a picture together. The bigger problem was that you cannot build 35-story skyscrapers on what is essentially a wet sandbox. The ground was unstable. To solve this, engineers had to compact the sand and remove the water. They used long probes that vibrated deep into the ground, shaking the sand particles closer together to make the foundation denser. At the same time, a complex network of pipes was installed to pump millions of liters of seawater out of the new land, allowing it to settle and become firm. This is a delicate and time-consuming process. Experts say reclaimed land often needs years to settle naturally before it is safe to build on. But in Forest City, the rush to build meant this critical step was condensed, creating huge risks for the structures that would one day stand there. This engineering marvel came at a devastating cost. The project was started without a proper environmental impact assessment. The new islands were built directly on top of Malaysia's largest seagrass meadow and precious mangrove forests. These were not empty parts of the sea. They were vital habitats for marine life and the foundation for the local fishing industry. The land reclamation smothered this ecosystem, causing irreversible damage and destroying the livelihoods of local fishermen. The dream of a green city began by destroying a real, natural ecosystem. With the new land in place, the next challenge was to build a city on this unstable foundation, a city that could withstand the harsh tropical sea. Building next to the ocean is incredibly difficult for materials. The salty air is extremely corrosive. It eats away at normal steel and concrete, causing them to rust and crumble. To prevent the futuristic city from decaying within a few decades, engineers had to use specialized and expensive materials. The buildings were constructed with special corrosion-resistant steel and a type of concrete mixed to resist seawater damage. This was a crucial decision to avoid massive maintenance costs in the future. To build the city at an incredible speed, the developers relied on a method called an industrialized building system, or IBS. Instead of building everything on site, large parts of the buildings were manufactured in a factory. Entire wall panels, facades, and other modules were prefabricated and then transported to the island. There, cranes lifted them into place, and workers assembled them like giant high-tech building blocks. To support this, the developer built a massive 2-square-kilometer factory nearby just to produce these parts. This method is much faster than traditional construction, but it requires perfect logistical coordination to get all the right pieces to the right place at the right time. To connect these massive pre-built panels, engineers used advanced solutions like the Grautek S-coupler system, a special sleeve that allows precast columns and walls to be joined together quickly and with immense strength. It was a factory assembly line, but for skyscrapers. The most iconic promise of Forest City was its appearance. It was marketed as a vertical forest, where the walls of the skyscrapers would be draped in lush, green plants. This idea was inspired by famous green buildings, like the Bosco Verticale in Milan. The goal was to create a city that felt like it was part of nature, where the greenery would cool the buildings, clean the air, and provide a beautiful, tranquil environment. The engineering behind this vision is incredibly complex. A living wall is not just a few flower pots on a balcony. It requires a metal frame attached to the building, which holds hundreds of modular containers filled with soil or other growing media. To keep thousands of plants alive on the side of a skyscraper, a sophisticated irrigation system is needed. This involves a network of pipes running at different heights, with drip lines delivering water and nutrients directly to each plant. Pumps, timers, and sensors are all required to work perfectly, day after day. But the beautiful vision soon crashed into the harsh reality of a tropical climate. The intense heat, constant high humidity, and heavy rainfall in Malaysia are brutal on these delicate systems. This environment is a perfect breeding ground for mold, algae, and root rot, which can quickly kill the plants. The lush greenery also attracts pests and insects. Maintaining a vertical forest in these conditions is a constant, expensive, and labor-intensive battle. The dream was beautiful, but the reality was an engineering nightmare. Faced with these impossible maintenance costs, the developers made a choice that exposed the hollow core of their green promise. If you look closely at the buildings in Forest City today, you will see that a large portion of the vertical forest is a fake. To save money, the project used artificial plastic plants glued directly onto the building facades. The city that promised a revolutionary blend of nature and architecture ended up with a cheap imitation. The Forest City is, in many places, a plastic forest. Perhaps the most ambitious part of Forest City's design was the infrastructure you were never supposed to see. The plan was for a city with no cars on the surface. All roads, highways, and parking garages were to be built underground or on a ground-level podium. The city that residents would experience was on the level above, a completely car-free landscape of connected parks, gardens, and walkways. It was a vision of a quiet, pedestrian-friendly utopia. This would be supported by a modern public transport network, including a light rail system and ferries to connect the islands to the Malaysian mainland and nearby Singapore. An artificial island city designed for 700,000 people also needs a massive and reliable supply of fresh water. The solution was to build Malaysia's first large-scale desalination plant. This facility would use a process called reverse osmosis, where powerful pumps force seawater through a series of fine membranes. These membranes act like microscopic filters, trapping the salt and allowing fresh water to pass through. It is an effective but very energy-intensive technology. The city was also planned to be a smart city, with energy-efficient buildings, solar panels integrated into facades, and a world-class data hub, creating a high-tech communication network. But all this incredible infrastructure was being built for a city of people who would never arrive. The collapse of Forest City was not caused by one single problem, but by a perfect storm of financial and political disasters that struck all at once. The project's biggest weakness was its complete reliance on Chinese buyers. In 2017, the Chinese government, worried about too much money leaving the country, put strict limits on how much its citizens could invest overseas. This single policy change instantly turned off the tap. The main source of customers for Forest City dried up overnight and sales collapsed. At the same time, the project became a source of political anger in Malaysia. The country's former Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad, attacked the project, calling it a foreign city built for foreigners that local people could not afford. When he won the 2018 election, he announced a ban on foreigners buying property in Forest City, which created huge fear and uncertainty, scaring off any remaining investors. With no money coming in from sales, the developer, Country Garden, was in deep trouble. The company was already carrying enormous debt, and without the income from Forest City, its financial problems spiraled into a full-blown crisis. Today, Country Garden faces debts of nearly $200 billion. This crisis starved the Forest City project of cash and construction ground to a halt. The final blow came with the global pandemic, which closed borders and made it impossible for anyone to travel, cementing Forest City's fate as an empty ghost town. Just when it seemed the story was over, the Malaysian government made a shocking announcement in late 2023. In a desperate attempt to save the $100 billion project, they declared that Forest City would be transformed into a special financial zone. This new plan is a radical pivot away from a residential paradise. The goal is now to attract a completely different group of people, international businesses and the super rich. To do this, the government is offering incredible incentives. These include a special low-income tax rate of just 15% for skilled workers, and most importantly, a 0% tax rate for what are called family offices, which are private companies that manage the massive fortunes of a single wealthy family. The new vision is for Forest City to become a bustling financial hub, a rival to nearby Singapore, specializing in financial technology and global business services. But this raises a huge question. Can a place designed as a quiet, green resort town, now famous for being isolated and empty, truly transform itself into a busy financial center? Or is this just a final desperate gamble to save a fundamentally broken dream? Forest City stands as a monumental lesson. It is a cautionary tale of what happens when boundless ambition and incredible engineering collide with the hard realities of politics, economics, and a flawed vision. It shows that you can build skyscrapers on man-made islands, but you cannot build a community without people. What do you think? Can this new plan save Forest City, or will it forever remain a $100 billion ghost town? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into one of the world's biggest engineering failures fascinating, be sure to like this video, subscribe to Ultimate Mega Builds, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss our next exploration of the world's most incredible mega projects.